Is Africa becoming carbon neutral? Carbon neutrality might seem like a goal reserved for developed nations, but for Africa, the potential is enormous. In fact, if Africa embarks on this journey towards sustainability, it could make strides that no one anticipated. The continent's shift to carbon neutrality won't just stimulate economic growth. It has the potential to challenge Western dominance on multiple fronts. The key question, however, is how did China's vision for a green future give Africa this new purpose? And what will it mean for the locals? Let's find out. China's green future vision gives Africa a purpose, but what is China's vision for a green future?
As the world turns towards sustainability, China is leading the way.
Is it even worth Africa getting into it? China's vision for a green future is encapsulated in the concept of ecological civilization, a term that goes beyond mere environmental protection to reflect a holistic view of how humanity should interact with nature. Under President Xi Jinping's leadership, China has integrated this vision into its national development strategy, creating a blueprint for how countries can grow their economies while preserving the environment. This vision is revolutionary, as it emphasizes that economic progress and environmental sustainability are not mutually exclusive, but rather complementary goals that must be pursued together to achieve long-term prosperity. At the heart of China's green future lies its aggressive push toward renewable energy. Over the past decade, China has emerged as a global leader in renewable energy production, particularly in hydropower, solar, wind, and biomass energy. The country is now the largest producer of solar panels and wind turbines in the world, and it dominates the global clean energy equipment market. This shift is not only benefiting China domestically by reducing air pollution and reliance on fossil fuels, but it is also influencing global energy markets, driving down the costs of renewable technologies and making them more accessible to other nations. One of the most significant targets is China's commitment to achieving carbon neutrality by 2060, with carbon emissions peaking before 2030. This goal is aligned with global efforts to tackle climate change, such as the Paris Agreement, and underscores China's desire to play a leading role in shaping international climate policy. These targets represent a bold shift for a nation that has historically relied on coal for much of its energy needs. China's vision of ecological civilization is also deeply tied to its technological advancements. The country has made significant strides in developing green technologies, including electric vehicles and EVs. China has been the world's top producer and seller of new energy vehicles for over 8 years and has built the largest network of charging stations globally. This move toward green transportation is critical, as it directly addresses one of the largest sources of carbon emissions: road traffic. By focusing on EVs and building the necessary infrastructure to support them, China is demonstrating how countries can transition away from fossil fuel-based economies without sacrificing mobility or economic growth. In line with this commitment, China is undergoing an energy transition that aims to increase the share of non-fossil energy sources to 25% of its total energy consumption by 2030. Renewable energy capacity, particularly in wind and solar, is expected to exceed 1.2 billion kilowatts by the same year, reflecting China's determination to lead in green technology. As of 2023, more than 53.8% of China's total installed electricity generation capacity comes from renewable sources, an impressive achievement for a country with a rapidly growing economy. But what makes China's vision truly unique is its global perspective. The Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), for instance, is not just an infrastructure project, but also a means of exporting China's ecological civilization to other parts of the world. By investing in green projects abroad, China is promoting sustainability as a key component of its international development agenda. Through the BRI, China is helping countries in Africa, Asia, and Europe build renewable energy plants, improve their energy efficiency, and adopt greener industrial practices. This vision for the future is bold and ambitious, but it is also essential. As climate change continues to pose an existential threat to the planet, China's ecological civilization offers a pathway for the world to achieve sustainable growth. By proving that economic progress can be decoupled from environmental degradation, China is setting an example for other nations to follow. In doing so, it is positioning itself as a leader in the global fight against climate change. One that is not just focused on its prosperity, but on the future of the planet as a whole. So, it looks like China's vision is worth joining. But would China like to follow this alone? Does it mean anything for the world and Africa? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. While China's ecological civilization is a global vision, its importance to the future of developing regions, particularly Africa, cannot be overstated. Africa is a continent that stands at the intersection of economic potential and environmental vulnerability. Rich in natural resources but highly susceptible to the effects of climate change, Africa faces a unique set of challenges as it seeks to balance economic growth with environmental sustainability. This is where China's green vision becomes not just important, but essential. Economically, Africa has long been dependent on extractive industries, such as mining and oil production, to fuel its growth. However, these industries are also some of the most environmentally damaging, leading to deforestation, soil degradation, and water pollution. China's vision of ecological civilization offers Africa a way to break free from this cycle of environmental destruction. By partnering with China, African nations can access the technology, expertise, and financial support needed to develop renewable energy sectors and more sustainable industries. This would allow Africa to diversify its economies while reducing its environmental footprint. One of the most immediate benefits of China's ecological vision for Africa is the potential for green energy development. Many African countries are already experiencing energy shortages, with large portions of the population lacking access to reliable electricity. Traditional solutions, such as building coal-fired power plants, are not only expensive, but also contribute to global carbon emissions. China's expertise in solar, wind, and hydroelectric power can help African nations build clean energy infrastructure that is both cost-effective and sustainable. For instance, China's investments in solar power in countries like Kenya and Ethiopia have already begun to transform the energy landscape in these regions, providing clean electricity to rural areas that were previously off the grid. Environmentally, China's ecological vision could help Africa address some of its most pressing challenges. Climate change has already had a devastating impact on Africa, from severe droughts in East Africa to flooding in West Africa. As a result, African nations need to adopt more resilient agricultural practices, better water management systems, and greener urban planning to mitigate these effects. China's experience in these areas can offer valuable lessons for African policymakers. For example, China's work in reforestation and desertification control has helped reverse decades of environmental damage in its northern regions, a model that could be applied to arid areas in Africa. Politically, aligning with China's ecological vision could also give Africa a stronger voice in global climate negotiations. Traditionally, African nations have been seen as passive participants in these discussions, with their needs and concerns often overshadowed by those of wealthier nations. By collaborating with China, Africa can position itself as a key player in shaping global sustainability policies. This could lead to more equitable outcomes in international agreements, such as the Paris Climate Accord, ensuring that the specific needs of developing nations are addressed. In short, China's ecological civilization is not just a solution for China. It is a framework that could help Africa leapfrog over traditional, environmentally damaging development models and build a more sustainable future. By adopting China's green vision, Africa stands to benefit not only economically, but also environmentally and politically, creating a future that is prosperous and sustainable for both continents. While it is apparent that for Africa, aligning with China will be very beneficial, why would China want to collaborate with Africa? What Africa has to offer to China?
So in your perspective, how will China tackle the global challenges and take the lead in international cooperation with Africa?
In year 2013, President Xi Jinping put forth the principle of sincerity, real results, affinity, and good faith during his visit to Tanzania. This year marks the 10th anniversary. In recent years, joint projects of highways, electricity, communication, and ports span across Africa under the framework of FOCAC.
At first glance, it may seem curious that China would prioritize collaboration with Africa over more developed nations when it comes to green development. After all, developed nations have more advanced infrastructure, higher levels of technology, and greater financial resources. So why would China choose to collaborate with Africa instead of focusing solely on partnerships with developed countries? The answer lies in the unique benefits that Africa offers China, as well as China's long-term strategic interests. First and foremost, Africa is rich in natural resources that are essential for the development of green technologies. As the world shifts towards renewable energy, the demand for certain minerals, such as cobalt, lithium, and rare earth elements, has skyrocketed. These materials are critical for the production of batteries, electric vehicles, and other green technologies. Africa is home to some of the largest reserves of these minerals in the world, making it a key partner for China as it seeks to expand its green technology industries. By securing access to these resources, China can maintain its leadership in the global clean energy market while ensuring that its industries have the materials they need to grow. As Africa's largest trading partner, China's trade with the continent has grown from a modest $11.67 billion in 2000 to a staggering $257.67 billion by 2022. This explosive growth underscores China's deepening role in Africa's economic landscape and highlights the continent's importance as a destination for Chinese goods and services. China's commitment to creating at least 1 million jobs in Africa, along with its pledge of $51 billion in new financing, reflects a strategic investment in the continent's development, which not only fosters economic growth, but also cements China's role as a key player in Africa's future. Additionally, Africa's growing population and rapid urbanization make it an attractive market for China's green technology products. With a population expected to reach 2.5 billion by 2050, Africa represents a massive consumer base for electric vehicles, solar panels, and other green technologies. As African countries develop their infrastructure and energy systems, they will need to invest in clean energy solutions to meet the demands of their growing populations. China, with its expertise in renewable energy and green technology, is well positioned to provide these solutions. By partnering with Africa, China can expand its market for green technology products while also contributing to global sustainability efforts. But the benefits of collaboration go beyond just economic considerations. Politically, partnering with Africa allows China to position itself as a leader in global green development. For decades, Western countries have dominated international environmental discussions, often imposing their solutions on developing nations. China's approach, however, is more collaborative. By working with Africa as an equal partner, China is promoting a model of development that is based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. This enhances China's global reputation and strengthens its relationships with developing countries, which are increasingly seeking alternatives to Western models of development. Furthermore, collaborating with Africa aligns with China's broader geopolitical strategy. As part of its Belt and Road Initiative, China has made significant investments in Africa's infrastructure, helping to build roads, railways, and ports that connect the continent to global markets. These investments are not just about economic development. They are also about building political alliances and securing China's influence in key regions. By partnering with Africa on green development, China can deepen these relationships and ensure that it remains a key player in the continent's future growth. So, both need each other. And let's say they do keep collaborating, then what changes will we see on the surface? The collaboration between China and Africa on green development will result in tangible, visible changes that will shape the future of both regions. These changes will not be abstract concepts or lofty goals, but real, practical developments that will improve the quality of life for millions of people and set a new standard for sustainable development. One of the most significant changes will be the transformation of Africa's energy landscape. Currently, many African nations rely heavily on fossil fuels to meet their energy needs, leading to high levels of pollution and carbon emissions. However, as China and Africa collaborate on green energy projects, we can expect to see a dramatic shift towards renewable energy sources. China's expertise in solar, wind, and hydroelectric power will help African nations build the infrastructure they need to generate clean, reliable energy. For example, China has already invested in solar power projects in Kenya and Ethiopia, providing clean electricity to rural areas that were previously off the grid. As these projects expand, more African countries will have access to affordable, sustainable energy, reducing their reliance on fossil fuels and lowering their carbon emissions. Another practical change will be the development of green infrastructure across Africa. China's Belt and Road Initiative has already laid the groundwork for large-scale infrastructure projects, such as roads, railways, and ports. However, as China and Africa deepen their collaboration on green development, these projects will increasingly incorporate environmentally friendly technologies and practices. For instance, new highways and railways could be built using sustainable materials, while urban planning initiatives could focus on creating energy-efficient cities that reduce waste and promote green living. These changes will not only benefit the environment but also create new economic opportunities as African nations develop the skills and industries needed to support green infrastructure projects. Transportation is another area where we can expect to see significant changes. China's leadership in electric vehicle EV technology will likely have a major impact on Africa's automotive industry. As African cities grow and urbanize, the demand for clean, efficient transportation will increase. China's experience with new energy vehicles, including electric buses and cars, can help African nations develop their green transportation networks. In the future, we may see electric buses replacing diesel-powered public transport systems in cities like Lagos or Nairobi, reducing air pollution and improving public health. Agriculture, which is the backbone of many African economies, will also benefit from China's green development expertise. Sustainable farming practices, such as precision agriculture and renewable energy-powered irrigation systems, can help African farmers increase their yields while minimizing environmental damage. These practices will not only improve food security, but also reduce the environmental impact of agriculture, protecting Africa's biodiversity and natural resources for future generations. Finally, we can expect to see changes in how African nations approach environmental governance and policymaking. As China and Africa work together on green development, African governments will gain valuable experience in managing environmental projects and implementing sustainability policies. This could lead to stronger environmental regulations, more effective conservation efforts, and a greater emphasis on protecting natural resources. By adopting a more proactive approach to environmental governance, African nations can ensure that their development is not only sustainable, but also resilient to the challenges of climate change. While environmental benefits are clear, the question arises: what will this collaboration make Africa look like in the eyes of the West? As Africa deepens its collaboration with China on green development, its relationship with the West is likely to undergo significant changes. For decades, African nations have relied on Western countries for financial aid, development assistance, and investment in infrastructure. However, these relationships have often been fraught with unequal power dynamics, with African countries receiving aid and investment in exchange for political concessions or unfavorable economic terms. As Africa becomes a key player in China's ecological vision, its approach to the West is likely to become more independent and assertive. One of the most immediate shifts we are likely to see is a reduction in Africa's dependence on Western aid and investment. China's Belt and Road Initiative has already provided African nations with an alternative source of funding for infrastructure projects, and its green development initiatives will offer even more opportunities for investment in renewable energy, agriculture, and transportation. As Africa gains access to Chinese capital and technology, it will no longer need to rely as heavily on Western aid, giving African nations greater autonomy in their economic and political decision-making. This shift in economic relationships is likely to have political implications as well. Historically, Western countries have used their financial influence to shape African policies, particularly in areas such as trade, environmental regulations, and governance. However, as Africa aligns itself more closely with China's ecological civilization, it may begin to resist Western pressures to adopt policies that do not align with its own development goals. For example, African nations may choose to prioritize green development projects that align with China's vision rather than accepting Western aid that comes with stringent conditions or environmental standards that are difficult to meet. Africa's collaboration with China could also lead to a rebalancing of its geopolitical alliances. In recent years, many African nations have sought to diversify their international relationships, moving away from exclusive reliance on Western powers and towards a more multipolar approach to diplomacy. By partnering with China on green development, African nations can strengthen their ties with one of the world's most influential economic and political powers, reducing their dependence on Western countries and giving them more leverage in international negotiations. This shift is likely to be most visible in global climate negotiations. Traditionally, African nations have been marginalized in international climate discussions, with their voices often drowned out by wealthier, more powerful countries. However, as Africa becomes a key player in China's green mission, it will have the opportunity to take a more active role in shaping global climate policies. By aligning itself with China, Africa can push for more equitable solutions to climate change, ensuring that the specific needs and challenges of developing nations are addressed in international agreements. Do you think China's vision for a green future will also transform Africa? Will it reveal Africa's true potential? Let us know in the comment section. Was collaborating with China instead of the US a good choice? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.